Hey everybody, it is Matt Weaver with Bible Truth Project, and I decided to do another section on difficult scriptures. These are fun scriptures where they're a little bit more challenging, and I like to talk about them, some of the more challenging aspects of things for us to, I guess, think about as believers. And today I have chosen as my primary text here Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28. And this is really in reference to the Canaanite woman. And it's kind of a harsh, it's a little bit of a harsh look, if you will, about, I guess, the way Jesus looked at ministry. I think oftentimes today in the church, we tend to forget about the Judeo-centric aspect of Jesus' ministry. We tend to think that as Jews rejected Jesus, that's a historical quote, if you will, that Jews rejected Jesus, that the Gentiles have come into primary focus. And there's a truth to that. In Romans 11, there was a shift, but Jesus' ministry was primarily to the house of Israel. And we're going to look at this here a little bit. So here we read, starting in verse 21, "And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. I've not been there. It's modern-day Lebanon, but it is in the north. I've been up on Mount Hermon, and with binoculars, you can actually see down. You can see where the two cities were, and I've been up there, and so I guess I have seen them, but I've just not been in them. But it's outside of the region. It's in a region that classically was part of Phoenicia, and so technically outside of the kingdom, if you will. And it's interesting to think of it that way because, again, many times we tend to think that there's a rejection, if you will, from God towards the Jewish people because of 70 AD and everything that happened, and then we say because they rejected the Messiah. However, it's very short-sighted to say that because the Messiah is a Jewish concept, and it is absolutely part of the Jewish narrative of the Bible. And I come back to that oftentimes because that was one of the most eye-opening things for myself, is to recognize the narrative of Scripture, that it isn't actually Gentile-centric. But here we see Jesus himself actually dealing with this very issue. And it's something as Gentiles, the reason it's a difficult Scripture is because it's kind of like, it feels as though he is rejecting the rest of the world. Because look at this situation. "Behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, 'Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David.'" So, number one, calls him Lord, calls him Son of David, like clearly understands he is the Messiah, he is the chosen one, and he said, "My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." And now stop and think of the cruelty here. He did not answer her a word. Ouch. "And his disciples came and begged him, saying, 'Send her away, for she's crying out after us,' he answered." Like she was making a commotion. Okay, I'm just reading this through as I'm thinking. But just, I mean, it's hard to fathom because in some ways we think Jesus is so loving, and we'll see that side of him. But we cannot forget how outside of the promises of God the Gentiles were. And this is the perfect verse section to really highlight that said positioning, if you will. "I send her away, for she is crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It's not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs." And she said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. Now think about the theological implications here. Number one, you have yourself a woman who, if you will, believes. She acknowledges him as Lord, Son of David. She recognizes him as Messiah. She's not an Israelite. She's not of the tribes of Israel. And yet she recognized this. And she's crying. And what does she say? Mercy. Have mercy. And I think we Gentiles should remember, if I can say it this way, it is only by the mercy of God that we have a way of escape. We should never boast. We should never be proud. We should never fly in the face of the true message of the gospel. We stand completely by the grace of God. We do not have any promises attached to us. We do not stand on anything other than God's grace. There is zero need, or how do I say it, for God to do anything on our behalf, because his promises were with Abraham's seed. And he affirms that here. I mean, you think about what's happening. I mean, here's a demon-oppressed woman. He said nothing. And the disciples were like, send her away. And then he answered her saying, most scathing words, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. If I could just get Gentiles like us to hear that, out of the mouth of Jesus, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I am not here for the rest of the world. I am here for Israel. But she came and knelt before him saying, Lord, help me. He said, it's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to dogs. Even in his mind, it's like, I'm sorry, I want to help you, but no, like it's not right that I take what I am to give to Israel and give it to you. It's not right. In his own words, it's not right. And then he goes and calls her a dog. Throw it to the dogs. But then she says one statement that even he himself cannot overlook. And it says, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And that is enough to soften the Lord to the point where he says, oh woman, great is your faith. He relents. And it's like, if I can just say it this way, where does this come from? Well, there are people right now in the Christian world. There's been a lot of scandals in the charismatic world, I should say, in the last year. There's a lot of strong things being thrown around, and yeah, for good or for bad, right or wrong. I don't know how I feel about all of that. But if I could just say one thing, that we have really nothing to stand on except the grace of God. We're naturally outside of, how would you say it? We're naturally outside of any covenant, any promise, any future, any hope. We are rejected as the world. God has rejected us. The Father has rejected us. And he had chosen Israel. And even in this situation, Jesus affirms that separation. Yet, when he's faced with the faith, just the base element, look, I know I don't belong in the covenant. I know that I am not of Abraham's descendancy, and I don't have promises, and Messiah isn't for me. Yet, could you please help me? I believe in you. And from that standpoint, brothers and sisters, when we come before God, we have to recognize how distant we are without him. We have nothing that he actually needs and requires. And I think it's exceptionally important to recognize that we have nothing. There's no obligation. As I read in John, it says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe on him should not perish but have life. And I think that's true. God has loved us enough that he sent his Son. He sent the Logos into the world, the light, the truth, the divine will into the world to save us. And yet, brothers and sisters, we we don't deserve it. We don't belong to it. It isn't part of our inheritance. It isn't part of our promise. And then on top of that, we have the gall and the audacity to say that Jesus turned his back on the very thing he said, I am only here for this. We say that. Jesus doesn't say that. I think it's a season when we read a verse like this to just stop and pause and recognize how precarious our position is, and not to be boastful, not to be proud, not to look beyond our weakness, and just say, God, it is only by your mercy. Son of David, have mercy on me. And that's all we got. That's it. We don't have anything else. All we can do is just have mercy. And it's through his grace and through his love that he then reaches out and accepts us and saves us because we believe. And that, brothers and sisters, is our attitude. We are alienated, but God has brought us near through the blood of the Lamb. And I think that is extremely good news for us. So be encouraged. God bless you, and have a wonderful week.